rangatira mānau mai whakatau mai anō ki tō tātou marae. What to do with child sex offenders? Well, many would say lock them up and throw away the key, or worse. But most convicted abusers are eventually released from prison, so what attempts are being made to stop them reoffending? Carmen Parahi visited Te Piriti, New Zealand's high-risk sex offenders unit, to find out, and a warning some content in this item may offend.
No one knows what it's like to be hated.
I knew that I was prone to offending against a child. Society wants to lock people up forever, but the reality is you can't.
But we can demand child sex abusers pay for their sins.
And I think one of the things that this program does is that it focuses in on your offending and it asks, you know, what happened, who was hurt, why did you do that, what was behind what happened with that, and how can you change that so that you don't do that again.
We won't identify this man or any of the 60 high-risk child sex offenders in Te Piriti because they all have victims we don't want to traumatise again.
Are you a monster?
No, but what I did was wrong, was not good.
He tangata hui I whara I runga I te huarahi o te he. Engari, kei roto nei, I ako au ki ngā mātauranga kia pai ai o taku hauranga ki roto I te hapori.
The inmates yearn for freedom, but to earn it, they're locked into intensive therapy for 12 months, a condition for possible release.
Kāri au e hehe ana ki te haere mai ki tēnei wāhi. Nā te mea e tino whakamā ana hau. Ki te whāki atu ki ngā tangata nei, mo taku mahi he.
Most of the men who come here are here because of emotional dysfunctional problems. As adults, when they're under stress, they find it very difficult to deal with that stress.
But you're not defending their behaviour?
Totally not. Totally not. It's just an explanation of what happens.
Jim Van Rensburg believes in the rehabilitation program. It's been his job for nearly 20 years. He claims once Te Piriti graduates leave prison, only 5 to 6% of them reoffend. We
don't ever claim that these people can be fully cured. That we don't say. But they can be, their behaviour can be managed, and the urges, their desire for children can be managed well.
Te Piriti was set up in 1994 to combine tikanga Māori with cognitive behaviour therapy.
Our program has been really enriched by introducing tikanga Māori concepts, and it is made for a much better program, and one that I think is giving us the kind of results that we are getting.
Mate Webb wanted out within a week of starting work here, but realised the program could keep children safe by changing the offenders. He's remained for a decade.
If somebody is quite impulsive in relation to their offending, I'd use the whakairo program to address that need, and what I do is I put them on fine designs. That way they slow up and they have to think about what they've got to do. If you've got somebody that's quite aggressive, you put them on the larger stuff to take away the majority of the waste. So there's healing aspect in each of those activities that we do, and it's aligned to the program.
I tua I timata I uru atu au I roto te whakaoranga a ropu. Kei reira I rongo ai ki ngā mauhere hara, ki a rātou he. Kātahi ka ngaro te āhua whakamā I roto I ahau. Kātahi ka puta, ka whakaputa ngā raru I roto I hau inoi a rātou.
I'd like to welcome everybody to this week's TC meeting.
There are no secrets here. The men and staff equally observe and judge the inmates' behaviours constantly in daily activities and during their regular open forums.
Is that bullying is in the sense of get out of my way, don't look at me, or is that bullying as in they're not acknowledging you or saying hello to you?
No, it's what it is. It's picking on my sexual orientation.
I'll give this message quite strongly. Knock it off, because we, the staff, will be looking for examples of that, and we will deal with it very severely.
Truth is the challenge in Te Piriti. The men will distort the reality of their offending by justifying their behaviours and blaming others for it, including their victims.
I actually have a copy of them here. Some risk factors for me would be getting lonely, leading me to seek comfort in wrong places.
And one of the big challenges in treatment is to break down those distortions and make sure that when a man leaves here, there's no doubt in his mind that he's fully responsible for what happened. The child can never be blamed for what happened, and no one else could be blamed. They have to take full responsibility.
Do you know any of your proposed release conditions?
One's definitely going to be around no association with children under the age of 16. My family actually have copies of my risk factors and early warning signs.
Identifying the risk factors for each individual is imperative. It determines what type of offender the man is and the type of treatments he will receive.
Most of these men who come to us are what we call child sex offenders and not pedophiles. A pedophile is someone who has a definite interest, sexual interest in children. They do not actually have successful sexual relations with other adults. They prefer children, and most of the time they would plan to get a child for their sexual gratification. Pedophiles, although they are at a higher risk of reoffending, they certainly can overcome it.
Some men have chosen an extreme path to curb their offending. Chemical castration, a hormone inhibitor, is being used as a treatment option in New Zealand.
It suppresses the sexual urge, and for some men they're quite happy to do that. Most of them are high risk and they're out in the community, yes.
The abusers themselves believe they need help in the community, support groups to prevent their offending.
Do we actually care about children being abused? Because we don't seem to. We want to hide it under the table and make it all dark and dastardly. But the reality is that no matter how much we dislike it, child sexual abuse happens in our community, and the only way to deal with it, as far as I'm concerned, is to actually acknowledge it.
I've been really surprised by the types of men I've seen here receiving treatment for sexually abusing children. They're a mix of young and old, different ethnicities, all shapes and sizes. For me, this visit has reiterated the point: a child sex offender can be anyone in our society. It's estimated up to 90% of sexual abuse happens between an adult and child known to each other. The majority of offenders in Te Piriti knew their victims.
We have come across some families in which sexual abuse is rife. There are victims in there and there's offenders, and it's a very complex system in the end. And it takes one person really to stand up and say enough is enough, we've got to do something about it.
Up to 900 men are in our jails for sexually abusing children every year. For 75 to 80% of them, it's their first incarceration for this type of crime.
It is utterly irresponsible of us to demonise all child sex offenders, not give them a second chance, not give them a chance to redeem themselves, and then in the end sit back and say, well, we're quite happy to see hundreds of new ones coming through the system every year, and we haven't stopped them in any way. We cannot let these things go on, because the extent of damage done to those children is just immense, unforgivable.
Although the focus is on changing the men, the safety of children is the purpose of the program.
Children with strong personalities, with a healthy mental health, are less likely to be targeted. So it is very important that we establish good relationships with our children, make them feel secure, make them feel safe, have that wonderful attachment with the parental figures. If we do that, we actually give the child the best chance of avoiding being abused.
So if you'd like to talk to someone about sexual abuse, call 0800 Abuse Prevent or 0800 228 737. There are also many websites including Jigsaw and Child Matters. And there's help for those who feel they may offend against children. Phone the Safe Network 09 377 9898 or go to the safenetwork.org.nz website.